I'm sorry that we're in this crappy club together and going through these things, but I think that that's what resonates through all of this is that, you know, everybody goes through grief and loss and everybody is there for one another in different ways and dealing with grief in different ways.
It's Guess Who Died? I'm Jeff, and that's Julia. And that's what we're talking about now. Guess who died? Julia, who died?
All right. I have a guess who died about a month ago. Chuck Woolery died.
I saw that, and that's a big one.
I know. Host of The Love Connection. I grew up watching game shows. Was that something for you? Did you grow up?
My sister ruled the television.
Oh.
And she had game shows on all morning. He was on Wheel of Fortune, and then he left. And then there was Love Connection. He did something else in there, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But Chuck Woolery was around all the game show mornings when I was a kid.
Like a third parent to us. I know. That was my grandmother, my nan. Anytime I went to her house, Game Show Network is what was on. That was Game Show Network 24/7. So that's a sad one.
What kind of influence he was huge. He was massive in the game show world, but did his legacy carry on? Who took over for him?
Pat Sajak took over Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
He was like the Ryan Seacrest, I feel like, just everywhere.
Yeah.
And now he was 83, so, he lived, but it's when, people are our grandparents' age, it's sort of like, it really does feel like Grandpa Chuck died.
Yeah. Julia, do you have an experience being a baby of the 90s? For me, a baby of the 80s, we watched Chuck in syndication. Right? I watched old episodes of The Love Connection and the whole 9 yards growing up. So to say he was even 80, to me, he's stuck in that
Oh, they're always young.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Is that a different type of loss when you don't even view them as old?
Absolutely. And I was thinking this before when people, celebrities specifically that are on TV shows die, but they live young forever on these shows, that it's, how do I know Chuck Woolery from the TV? Well, if I'm watching old episodes where he's young, he's just as real to me now than if he's alive or dead. So,
yeah. And it's funny you bring up somebody that's on every day because that's what I'm bringing to the table
Oh,
today.
okay.
All right. My mom was a huge Days of Our Lives fan back in the day, and sometimes I'd get hooked. There was a character on the show called Roman Brady. And both guys that played Roman Brady passed away within 3 days of each other. Drake Hoggeston, I think I'm saying his name right, died. He was dealing with cancer. He had been fighting cancer, and he finally succumbed to it. And Wayne Northrup, who was the original Roman Brady, had Alzheimer's. And they passed within days of each other. I could not believe my mom wasn't on me on Messenger. Did you see Roman died, both of them? And she didn't know. I told her. And I'm like, I was blown away by that because that was a part of our childhood. She had it on every single day. And she really, you connect. Just like Chuck Woolery, you connect every day with these people.
I'm going to say, Jeff, producer Casey, little known fact, big on Days of Our Lives and General Hospital. My sister and my mother grew up, we watched. But then my sister and I, when we lived together in college, we would come home at night and we would turn on the soap opera digest channel and we would watch the episodes. And so definitely, when I went to LA, I visited the set of Days of Our Lives. So yes.
Unbelievable.
So Roman hits home, man.
That blew me away. That happened within a couple of days of each other.
And I love that one of the actors' names is Drake, and he was on Days of Our Lives. I think
Drake Ramore.
Drake Ramore.
It all ties together, doesn't it?
It does.
Wow.
Another one that this was an old Guess Who Died, but it did pop up. There is a new postage stamp coming out next year with Miss Betty White's face on it. And I am a bit of a stamp collector. I do always like to I don't collect them, but I do like to buy new stamps when they come out. But I am just finished watching Golden Girls for the third time. And so now here she is, Betty White.
Every time I see something with her pop up on social media, an old video or an old TV show or something, she was so funny.
A gem.
And, with those stamps coming out, it reminds me of how we found out that she had passed. We were on a cruise ship, and it was New Year's night, and we were at a comedy club. The first thing this comedian comes out and says, by the way, we want to announce the passing of Betty White this morning. I'm like, and she was going to celebrate her 100th birthday. We're just floored. Now, she was 99, but nobody thought she was going to go. And it seemed like she's going to live forever. And we were just floored. And then he's like, okay, now laugh at me. You know what I mean? And it's like, how are you going to give us that first?
And was that 2020 when that happened? Was it going into 2020?
22, I believe.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I think so.
I couldn't remember if she was the
the
last thread holding our globe together before COVID.
And we have that same like game show connection. Betty White was funny on what was that?
Password?
Password. Password definitely.
Hollywood Squares?
Hollywood Squares.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
yeah, she was great on that one.
She also hosted a show called Just Men in the 80s.
Really?
She'd get all these famous dudes, whether baseball or actors, and she just had a blast with them.
I do not remember that.
That's the game
Jeff.
show. Betty White gathers athletes and has a blast with them.
All the guys. She's getting all the guys together. It was called Just Men. You just made me think of that. Boy, we just it's been 2-3 years since she passed, and we were on a New Year's cruise in between Christmas and New Year's, and we found out that way.
I think it's always very cool when we come together for our podcast, Guess Who Died, just to think about the cultural icons that we have and what legacies they hold and how we all mourn. We all have a Betty White. Like, we all have a Betty White story.
And we have feelings when they die, whether we knew them or not.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
All right, we're looking forward to today's guest on Guess Who Died. We are going to have a very special person joining us after the break. Olivia's House is an independent, freestanding, nonprofit grief and loss center that supports children and their families before, during, or after a loss, all at no cost. When death enters your house, you are welcome at our house, where families are met with professional care, expert guidance, and resources for children and teens of any age. Nestled in central Pennsylvania, Olivia's House continues to be the premier independent grief and loss center.
And welcome back.
All right, on today's episode, we have Lauren Blanar. Lauren, welcome to Guess Who Died?
Hey, Julia, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your experience with loss.
Sure. So I am not from this area. I'm from northern Baltimore County in Phoenix, Maryland. And I have dealt with loss specifically the past 4 years. I lost my best friend to a brain aneurysm about 4 years ago.
Wow. Best friend of how many years? Tell us a little bit.
Actually, she was my best friend probably of 10 years. We started working together in the public school system together. She was a school psychologist, and I'm a speech language pathologist. So we started working together, and she has 2 boys. I have 2 boys. So we just kind of gelled, and that death was very sudden, very unexpected. She was healthy as a horse, and one day she just passed just so quickly. So we dealt with that, and that was very difficult. And then fast forward to 2 years later, and my mom died very suddenly. She had COVID, and the COVID turned into COVID pneumonia, and then she went septic and passed.
Wow. And that was at what point in COVID? When was that your mom died?
That was October 2022. Wow. So she had struggled with underlying health issues, and she had done a pretty good job keeping herself healthy during the whole pandemic, and then had contracted the COVID and seemed like she was doing okay. And then just had a turn of events, and everything sort of went downhill, and it was just a complete shock to my sisters and I.
And the complete suddenness of both of those losses, and that's double the effect, and you're still trying to deal with the immediate grief.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. 2 very important people in my life that, would do anything for anyone, and to suddenly have such amazing people be taken away from you. There's something to be said, and we joke about that, like all the good people die young, but I mean, it's the truth. That's what really had happened in this case. And sadly, these wonderful women were taken way too soon.
That is what keeps resonating to me, to start with the loss of your best friend, followed by the loss of your mom. Those are 2 crucially important women in the life of a woman, such as yourself. And you mentioned
Right.
sisters too. And I mean, sisterhood, just the feminine divine, is so powerful. I mean, what is that like? Because when you lose a best friend, I'm sure you turn to your mom for support. When you lose a mom, you're going to turn to your best friend. But here you are in this quagmire of, like Jeff said, layered bereavement.
Yeah, totally layered. And I think it's funny because my mom later in life became a best friend to me. And then when I had lost my friend Shannon, she was also very close to her and considered her almost like a fourth daughter. So she really felt the impact of that loss too. And, you know, her children and my children went to the same school together, which is coincidentally where my mom taught for so many years. So we just had, you know, this huge connection with one another. And, you know, I did turn to my mom during that time for a lot of support. And she was amazing, helping me through that, you know, because she had dealt with so much loss very early on in her life. She had lost her parents very young, my grandparents. And then when my mom had died, yeah, it's hard. You don't know who to turn to. And unfortunately, I feel like I'm at the age now where a lot of my friends are starting to lose parents or starting to take care of parents. And, you know, it's one of the statements we always say to each other is, you know, I'm sorry that we're in this crappy club together and going through these things. But I think that that's what resonates through all of this is that, you know, everybody goes through grief and loss and everybody is there for one another in different ways and dealing with grief in different ways. So I had done grief therapy for 4 years. And it's funny because I had just finished grief counseling for the loss of my friend Shannon. And then my mom had passed and went back into grief counseling again. And when I finally felt like I had the tools to leave the second go around, my grief therapist actually dubbed me a grief ambassador because she felt like I was doing so many other things to help other people. So I do feel like, to answer your question, you know, talking with my friend and then talking with my mom and everyone and just kind of being there for one another, that really just helps you to be a support, even when you feel like you're not being a support to someone, if that makes sense.
Total sense. So what turned you towards grief counseling? A lot of people don't even reach out. They just keep it to themselves or find a different way to deal with it. What made you turn to a grief counselor to get help?
I was totally shocked by the loss of my friend, and I couldn't put into words, and the grief was so unbearable. And I had done counseling in the past for different things, so I knew it was always something that I could turn to if I had the need for it. And I will say it was such an amazing experience. You know, the grief therapists are just wonderful people, and they really do help you through probably the worst time of your life. And, you know, I would recommend it to anybody that is uncertain about what they can do. I know a lot of people feel like, oh, I don't need it, like I'll get through this. But I mean, grief is real. And I think that when you're able to talk to a complete stranger and they're able to give you the tools and the coping strategies to get through it, it's just the right thing to do.
What are some of the best tools for you?
I think some of the best tools for me are really doing for others and really just trying to seek other ways to be there for other people in their time of need. And, you know, I felt like volunteer work has been amazing, and I work with small children for a living, and I deal with a lot of loss with families too. You know, I work in a very urban population, so I think that, you know, we're all going through different things in our lives in terms of grief. You know, that looks different in so many ways. So that's really helped me help others, I guess, and deal with the grief in that sense.
And here you sit.
Here I sit.
Grief ambassador.
Yes,
Well,
and you can tell you're comfortable talking about it. And I think that is something that is a gift that you receive when you go through a loss, be it a death or really any type of loss, is this level of being able to talk about it. You've survived it. The least I can do is talk about it. That part's easy. And that you having that courage is what just that alone can inspire other people to say, oh, I guess it's okay to share this. It's okay to have this story. And that may even come generationally from your mom having lost her parents at a young age. Do you find she instilled that in you, or what's coming up
Yeah,
for you?
I definitely think she did. And, I think it's funny that you bring up the generational aspect of it, because I think that, a long time ago, people kind of shied away from talking about grief and loss, and it was just something you push forward and you just, you went on your way about. And I think my mom, and not just specifically regarding grief, like was so encouraging about talking about everything, and she grew up in a family where they were always there for each other, but they didn't necessarily talk about all those things. And my mom was always good about doing that. And even as she got older, she was an educator and she was always there for families and children. Like she always encouraged them and was, supportive of them to help out in any way too. So I think that that's something that, I encourage my children now too. Like, be there for your friends, talk to them, like really, allow them to go through all the emotions, because I think that's something that kids struggle with so much these days. Like they have to be these stoic little bodies and keep it together for the sake of their family, but they don't. And we don't either as adults.
The one thing that it still happens to me today, if somebody loses somebody, you sometimes don't know how to approach it. You don't want to bring up a hard feeling or a sad feeling, and you try to approach it in such a way. Have you found that you've learned ways to do that? And have people been hesitant to come to you and talk to you about how you might feel or trying to help you out?
Yeah, I definitely think people are more hesitant. And something my sisters and I have both acknowledged, and it's great that you brought that up, Jeff, is that, I feel sad when you don't bring her name up. I want you to talk about my mom. I want you to talk about my friend. I want you to share the memories, because that's what they would have wanted. So I think that that's something I'm very intentional about when I'm around people that have lost others in their lives, especially with my friends' children. I always find a way to honor their memory and always talk about them, because that's how we live. That's how we go on. We don't forget about them.
I know we do that all the time. We don't hesitate. And we laugh a lot. It's amazing when you share those stories, how healing and fun it can be. Even in the the sadness and missing them, it just makes you feel good because they're there in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a great pentatonic song called Evergreen, and it talks about a mother's love is evergreen. And my sister actually stumbled upon it 2 years ago. And my sister is the memory keeper out of the three of us. She remembers everything. She doesn't forget anything. So she has old home videos of us when we were younger with my mom. And it's so cool because after my mom had passed, the first Christmas, she put together this video collaboration, and it was put to the music of this song. And it's just beautiful. And it just we fast forward through the video collaboration of all these different Christmas memories, like with my mom and like my sisters and now our children. And it's the coolest thing to watch. And it just gives you all the good vibes when you're watching it.
And it's more, I love the good vibes. And it's more than that. That is the healing. And in doing these things, in putting the video together, in having the memories, the conversations, in encouraging your children to know these stories that maybe they weren't there for with your mom, or it was from when she was a child. But the more we talk about it, the more we share these traditions, that is what we call continuing the spiritual relationship with our person. Because when they're here on earth, that's a physical relationship. We can hug them, we can hold hands, we can call them on the phone. When that person dies, the relationship is not over. It is very different. No more hugs, no more phone calls. That's what the ache in the heart, that homesickness comes from. But being able to tell those stories, being a teacher yourself when your mom was a teacher, all of these things that you are in some ways doing in her legacy, that is the spiritual relationship. And that's doing work. That's incredible. Not everyone has the courage to do that. So
Thanks.
It's amazing.
Is that your new tradition now to watch that video?
I do watch it. Actually, I just watched it before I came over here to do this
nice.
podcast.
Perfect.
Get out. I love that. Okay, Lauren, you talked earlier about having COVID loss here. That is a big, monumental, historical piece. I mean, this is something we're talking are going to be in textbooks. And for you, it's not a chapter in a textbook. This is one of your closest people in your world. But how was that actually living what was on the news, what was in the articles? Were you able to be with your mom? Were you able to, all of these pieces? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the time was weird because we were all trying to navigate the new normal. And with my mom having underlying health issues, she was very careful about going out and who she was around and really trying to not compromise herself in that regard. And I think that she did a really good job of it. And we, were all very sensitive to that and tried to do our best to stay healthy and to, be respectful of the fact that we wanted to be with each other. But, unfortunately, we had all these rules and we had to figure out how we were going to keep each other safe. And I think that the saddest thing about the loss with her was that we felt like, we've done it. Like it's been 2 years. COVID is finally starting to go away. And, she's done so well. And then, she got it. And we just thought that she would be okay because we talk about, you get the COVID shots and you do everything you're supposed to do in terms of, the care, whether you get the Paxlovid or you don't, and just, trying to keep yourself healthy. And I mean, she did everything that she could, and she still didn't end up making it through, which was, I think, probably the most traumatic thing for us because we thought, mom's a fighter, mom's going to get through this. We're going to come out of this and we're going to laugh and we're going to joke about how, she didn't do this and she didn't do that. And we didn't get that opportunity because she did pass. So, that was really tough. And even now, it's hard for me when people talk about COVID and people say, oh, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's a very big deal. And I think that, we have to do our best to watch out for those loved ones that we don't want to see, get hurt or get sick. But, even now, it's still this very mysterious thing that we just don't know. And, people are starting to come back now and they're testing positive. And it's just, for me in my head, that's the post-traumatic stress that I deal with when I hear that. And when people, don't really take it as seriously.
How angry does that make you?
Very angry.
I'm feeling it for you right now because I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and you hear people constantly say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's just like the flu. And then you lose someone like your mom so suddenly, and it's got to make you, Absolutely. I mean, she would still be here if it, hadn't reared its ugly head on her. And, it's crazy because I can even remember my mom's funeral and having my dad, who my sisters and I don't have a relationship with anymore, coming into the funeral. And one, we didn't want him there in the first place. And then secondly, he walked in and we were all wearing masks at the funeral. And the first thing that he said was, are we really wearing these masks? So talk about anger, wow. Jeff. I mean, that really blows it away. Ay. Well.
Talk about layers of loss here. I mean, and funerals are something that can bring it out, whether it's family coming out of the woodwork, people seeing it in the newspaper and showing up. And that's when we talk about all death is loss, but not all loss is death. Even something like seeing your dad walk into a funeral, that's a loss on top of it, of losing your mom.
Absolutely.
So, wow. What an intense time for you.
That's a lot to deal with the grief and then not really have a relationship with your dad. And he comes in and he kind of right in your face. That's no, I
like, hi, bye.
I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that whole piece I was talking about before. We jokingly say the good people die and that the not so great people live forever. And here we have my father walking in who will probably live forever. But To piggyback on the funeral, I mean, at the same token, funerals can be such a great experience in seeing just how many people like really show up for that loved one that you know in your heart is just this amazing person. And that's how it was for my mom's funeral. There were so many people there, and I felt so blessed. And we had a special candy bar for my mom's funeral because she loves snacks and treats. So we tried to make it as special about her.
What was the candy bar? I have
Yeah.
to know.
So, that's an excellent question that I should know all the answers to. I can tell you some of her favorite treats. I don't remember if all of them were there, but she loved cowtails. She really liked a Twizzler.
So it's the long cylindrical shape of the
Yeah, pretty much anything sweet and chewy. So we tried to, we tried to make it really personable, especially for the grandkids, because they knew my mom as Nunee. That was her grandmother name. She had a knee replacement right before my nephew was born, and we sat in the hospital room and we joked about what her grandmother name was going to be. And my mom's mom was Nanny, and she said, I don't want to be Nanny. Nanny sounds old. So when she was getting her knee replacement, my sister said, I would just call you Nunee. And she said, I love that. So then she became Nunee to the grandchildren, and Nunee always had treats, and Nunee always brought treats to the kids. So that was something we knew we were going to have at the funeral. And then at the wake afterwards, in Baltimore, we have an ice cream truck called Miss Twist Ice Cream Truck, and they have the best soft serve vanilla ice cream. And that was she would tell you that is my favorite thing ever, because that's how, and my mom's name was Carol. That's how Carol amped up everything in life. This is the best ever for anything and everything. So that we had to have the best soft serve ice cream ever at her funeral. So everybody got soft serve ice cream afterwards. So
That is so special.
That's nice. Yeah, you say that's nice. We're talking about a funeral, but it really that's healing. That helps.
Absolutely.
That starts the ball rolling in the right direction, because you can all remember what she liked. And was there? I'm guessing there was some laughter there.
Oh, tons of laughter, and everybody knew it, whether they knew her as Nunee or Carol, and then other kids that, came to know her as Miss Will in school. They always knew, like, after school they could come and see her, and she always had a ton of snacks for them, and she would always give them a treat. And then even with my 13-year-old, she had always nicknamed her Moon Pie. So when we had the funeral, in the casket, all the kids put different treats that were her favorite, like the cowtails and the Twizzlers. And then my son we made a special trip to the grocery store that morning, and he got a moon pie and put it in the casket for her.
That is so cool. And again, amazing that you had the foresight to do that for the kids and to give them that opportunity. That's so special.
We just really tried to make everybody a part of the funeral, and it was special because the kids each got up and they did a part of the reading, and they spoke to her, they spoke to Nunee, and my sisters and I each spoke for the eulogy, which is really interesting, because you don't ever picture yourself like preparing something like that until the time comes, and then you think, what am I gonna say? Like, I have no idea how this should go, because my sisters and I, as close as we are very different people. So we each brought a different perspective to our eulogy. So it was nice how it all came together, and it really flowed beautifully for everybody to hear.
Okay, so you have the memory keeper sister. How would you describe everyone's roles as a sister? How are you different?
I'm totally the token big sister, which is funny because when you look at the three of us, you would not think I'm the big sister. I'm the shortest one out of the three of us, but I'm definitely very serious. I mean, I think I'm pretty serious, but I think I'm funny too. But yeah, my middle sister is definitely the memory keeper, and then my youngest sister is probably a good mix of the three of us. But she, true to form, she was youngest sister, kind of got away with everything, and gave her side of the story. She told part of her eulogy talked about how when we were younger, we used to volunteer at the soup kitchen. And it was one of those things, when you're younger, you don't want to go to any of that. And, you get dragged out because, that's the right thing to do. So she told her story at the funeral was about how my mom took her to the soup kitchen with her the one weekend. And my mom told her, this is what you're going to do, and went through like all the facts. And my sister said, well, I have a question. And she said, what? She said, what do I do if they try to touch me or talk to me? And my mom totally, without hesitation, said, be kind. You hug them. And it was just so funny at the funeral when she said this, because that was totally my mom, and that was her legacy in life, be kind, like, kindness is the best. And it's funny because when you think about like an 8-9-year-old kid like going to a soup kitchen, like that is a very like honest question to ask. And she just didn't think twice about it. You hug them, be kind. Like what else is there to talk about? So I actually have a keychain now that says be kind and hug them from my very good friend at work, because it stuck with her like from the eulogy.
Man, you know what I'm taking from this, and the more that we talk about death and loss and grief, I remember back when I was a kid going to funerals, nobody laughed.
No,
there was no laughing. At my dad's, they did reveille we were talking about Winston Churchill. He did taps, and then he said, "Then play reveille because I'm going to wake up." And when he did reveille, my sisters and I started to chuckle in the pew, and everybody looked at us like we were losing our minds.
Right.
My dad did that to us to wake us up. So we lost our minds. It was the best ever.
Yeah.
And it made us feel a little lighter that day.
Yeah.
And as we've moved forward in time in funerals and remembering people at the funeral or at whatever service, celebration of life, more people are laughing and enjoying the memories instead of just, we shouldn't. It's changed so much, and it's good.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's that aha moment, like, oh, okay. And, as you said before, Julia, these layers, like we get down to that layer of, oh, okay, like this is where we can, really laugh and be happy and really, talk about all the things.
And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And this is with children, even with adults, is if someone overhears you saying, oh, yeah, my mom died in 2022. Oh, my gosh, she had such a sweet tooth. Someone overhears that, and now they think, I can do that. I can talk about my loved one. I can just casually tell a story. And your kids have internalized this to know this is okay. This is what we do. Yeah, we miss them. Yeah, it stinks. But we talk about it. We share stories. We laugh. And that impact is so amazing to have. And I'm so grateful that you were able to do that for your kids and for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. They had such a good relationship with her, all of the grandkids. They loved her so much. And, she always told us that they were her favorite people in the world, which I always thought was ironic. So I, would say, hey, Mom, you didn't get to those little people until, I came around.
Right.
Dagger to the heart. But, she loved them more than anything in this world, and she would do anything for them, and they knew it. And it's so hard now to see them go through all these special moments in their life and not have my mom there. I mean, even last night we were at my son's Christmas concert, and we had my in-laws there who I love dearly, but to some degree, it's just not the same. And I think for me, the hardest thing is when you look around and you see all these other grandparents and parents, and you think to yourself, wow, they should be here.
That goes back to, I think, even Jeff bringing up how angry does that make you? I think, even with your mom, with your best friend, just the anger of why did this have to happen and how frustrating that can be when there isn't an answer.
Yeah, there's no answer. And, I think with the layers of grief, there was a time when there was so much anger. And now I feel like I'm less anger and just a little sad. And then I'm able to deal with it a little bit better. And then, I remind myself, okay, she did get to do this and she did get to do that. And, we'll still always do this to honor her memory, and we'll still always have the tradition. So I think that's what keeps me going on and pushing through.
Good for you. And good for you for experiencing sadness, because anger is a surface level emotion. It's easy to access. Like you said, Jeff, we just want to go, oh, that makes me so angry. But
Right.
sadness requires us to, as we're going through the bereavement process, to slow down, turn inward, and face that pain. And that is where the sadness lies. Like I said, it takes courage to do it, but you are the walking embodiment of it. Nunee would be proud.
Thank you. Yeah, Nunee would definitely be proud.
And I mean, you just rolled it out, just like Julia said, the stages and the process of what you're going through. And that process continues for the rest of your life. But you always have her there. And your kids will always have her there, and to talk about it and to keep those memories alive. They're always right there.
And now we have it too. I will never look at a cowtail again without thinking of Nunee.
Truth.
That is the legacy. So thank you so much, Lauren. It was great having you on the show.
Guess Who Died is brought to you by Olivia's House, a grief and loss center for children. Olivia's House is a community-funded organization that provides comfort and education to families when they need it most, and we are able to keep our doors open thanks to donations from people just like you. Find out ways to support or get support from Olivia's House by visiting www.oliviashouse.org. Lauren Blanar was a great guest.
Isn't she fun?
She was so open about what she went through, especially with her mom, and the way they handled dealing with her loss and the funeral, and just the details she gave, and how her sisters tied it all together with a eulogy. And it really stood out to me with, how do you get your mind around doing that when you lost your mom?
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. The person that you historically turn to for help in these times and figuring out what to do in life. And now you've sort of leveled up. You're the matriarch of the family now. You're the one that has to figure these things out. And yeah, and again, having lost her best friend just a few years before, that would be someone you'd lean on for this. It's a lot of layers there.
And the fact that she used grief counseling in both instances, and it's helped her to help people around her to process the grief. And I think that's awesome. And that's what it's all about, what we're doing here. And I like that.
You can see clear as day when someone has done healing work. You really can see it is just written in the way they talk and the way they are able to remember when the work has been done. It's special to be around.
And you had some books that you wanted to talk about.
Okay. Jeff saw me furiously scribbling as Lauren was talking. One of the things she mentioned was being part of the Dead Parents Club or the Dead Moms Club, so the club that nobody wants to be a part of. I just have to shout out one of my favorite books. It is by Kate Spencer. It's called Dead Moms Club. And I gave this to my best friend, actually. Her mom died in a year before Lauren's mom, 2021. And I got online that morning and I ordered it and sent it to her house. And I messaged her and I said, don't open this if you're feeling fragile, because you open it and it is right on the front of the book, Dead Moms Club. I mean, all cap letters. And I said, you are going to love this book. It is going to speak to your soul, but you got to be ready for what you're going to see. And just what Lauren said, they've been through the worst already. They can handle seeing the word Dead Moms Club on a book, And sure enough, it's a memoir. It's written by a comedian, so it has that kind of funny element in there too. But it talks about being part of the club that nobody wants to be a part of. So I always like to recommend Kate Spencer's book, Dead Moms Club.
I like it. It sounds like it would. I mean, I don't want to be a member of that anytime soon, and that's one of my biggest fears right now. And I get it. And don't send it to me anytime soon.
Jeff, same. Even someone who works in this field, that is something I really hate thinking about, is losing my mom.
Another book? You had another one?
I know. You and I have both been through the loss of a parent. Okay. Other book, and this is also written by a woman, so I know we got a female power show today. Casey Wilson, another comedian. I love my comedians. Her book is called The Wreckage of My Presence. She meets another late great, Louis Anderson. She meets him at a party while he's still alive, and they have a whole conversation. They're talking. She mentions that her mom died recently and that no one's really talking to her about it, and she drug herself to this party. Louis Anderson says, same here, my mom too. And as Louis Anderson gets up to walk away and move on to the party, and he turns around and he goes, "Hey, Casey, what was your mom's name?" And she says, "Kathy." And Louis raises his glass and says, "To Kathy," and walks away.
Oh, I like that.
I have chills every time I tell that
I just got
part of the story. It is just that moment of looking in someone's eyes, raising your glass and saying to their loved one's name, there is something so brave in that, to be able to say, I am courageous enough to be present with you in this moment, and to be the recipient of that. It's so powerful. So.
Ooh. Well, being around you for as long as I have, one moment like that happened to me we were floating on the creek. It was soon after my wife's grandfather had passed. And every time you asked this man how he was doing, it was terrible. So we're on the creek, we got our beers in our hands, and we start sharing memories about Pap. And the next thing you know, we're getting ready to do a toast. I'm like, "How's everyone feel?" And terrible. And everybody just loved it. And it just made everybody so much lighter. And it popped into my head to do it. And it related to everybody there because he always said that. And you knew he was okay when he said it. If he said he was doing okay, you knew there was something wrong. And that was when he had just lost his wife, her grandmother. And he didn't say he was terrible at that point.
Wow.
So for Louis Anderson to do something like that, you did give me chills. Thank you.
Yes.
So there's some good books there. Okay.
Absolutely. So yes, and that is, reading is sometimes one of the most powerful things we can do to jumpstart our healing. I think even for anyone listening to this, you and I are talking a lot about healing. We talked to Lauren about what it looks like, but people are wondering, where do I start? I'm feeling kind of stuck in my grief. And I think a book is always a really good place to start.
Well, you said the first one's a memoir.
Yes. They're both memoirs.
They're both. Okay.
Yes.
So would that have been something that started because they decided to start journaling about their loss?
For actually Dead Moms Club, I do believe she pulls from actual journal entries that she had. Don't quote me on this, I might be wrong, but from her experience of when her mom was dying and had died. But yes, it's very real of here's what people said to me that I hated. Here's what happened that was great. And here's what I was thinking when I woke up in the middle of the night. But it's really told in a very relatable, funny, kind of sarcastic way too.
I can't wait to do this again.
Me too. All right, tune in next time for another episode of Guess Who Died to find out who died. Guess Who Died is an Olivia's House production, sponsored in part by the M&M Lissauer Family Foundation.